All-American swimmer and women's rights activist, or should I say forced to be women's rights activist, Riley Gaines, was assaulted and surrounded by a screaming mob of Tea People activist students when she went to speak at San Francisco State University, which in itself shouldn't have been that big of a surprise considering the venue, but the lack of preparation and preparedness is surprising as hell. Just my 2 cents. I mean, she's certainly no Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro, but these freaks over in this area have been looking for a juicy conservative victim to enact their victimhood fantasies on for quite a while. The campus police had to rush her to a room where they were barricaded inside for 3+ hours. She said they were afraid to confront the crowd outside in a truly scary moment. Now get this is a first as far as I'm aware of. The activists were caught on video talking about demanding money for her release. How interesting. She wasn't able to leave until the city police finally showed up and were able to free her from the crowd. You see, she didn't bring her debit card to the speech, and, who's going to carry cash in San Francisco? I'm kidding, of course. And of course, so far, there have been no arrests, according to the University Police Department, despite those violent actions taken against her. In fact, there was an incredible statement issued by Jamila Moore, EDD, San Francisco State University's Vice President for Student Affairs and Enrollment Management. Here's a tweet. I'm not going to read the whole statement, but luckily David Lamas tweeted out the highlights. Quote, San Francisco State Community. Today, San Francisco State finds itself again at the center of a national discussion regarding freedom of speech and expression. Let me begin by saying clearly, the trans community is welcome and belongs at San Francisco State University. Further, our community fiercely believes in unity, connection, care, and compassion, and we value different ideas even when they are not our own. San Francisco State is regularly noted as one of the most diverse campuses in the United States. This is what makes us Gators, and this is what makes us great. Diversity promotes critical discussions, new understandings, and enriches the academic experience. But we may also find ourselves exposed to divergent views, and even views we find personally abhorrent. These encounters have sometimes led to discord, anger, confrontation, and fear. We must meet this moment and unite with a shared value of learning. Yeah, that's enough of that. I think you get the drift, or the grift. Yeah, more like the grift. She praised the people who, quote, participated peacefully and said how proud she was of them. Nowhere was there any mention of the violence of the mob, and nowhere was there a condemnation of those actions, of course. If you do take the time to read the entire statement, which you don't have to because I did it for you, you'd have flashbacks of 2020 and the mostly peaceful BLM riots. Indeed, her concerns were not for Gaines, who had been assaulted, or the university being so out of control that speakers can't be safe there, but the students who needed to heal after Gaines' visit, you see. These poor ranting fascist students who wanted to shut down speech that they didn't like were, in her mind, the real victims here. But luckily, Riley Gaines was having none of that. On Saturday, she said that this wasn't going to deter her. She indeed told Tucker Carlson she would not be silenced as she described this scary situation to him. One of the most shocking things was the response of the police and how they were afraid to respond because they were afraid of what the mob was capable of. She also said that she would be seeking legal action against the people involved and that they would face repercussions. Gee, I wonder in that list of repercussions if bribery or extortion will be involved. How interesting. Here's the clip.
That's the most dangerous extremist group in the United States. There's no mistaking it. Riley Gaines, once again, is not an ideologue or a demagogue. She's not out to hurt anybody. She's a college swimmer who was cheated against and doesn't think that's fair. In the face of that, people threaten her life and scream transparently nonsensical things like trans women are women. Trans women are not women. Women are women and men are men. And that's unalterable. And if you think otherwise, you are delusional. And they are delusional and therefore dangerous. Last night, Riley Gaines was silenced and assaulted at San Francisco State. Her most basic civil rights were stolen by a violent mob. The thing we're supposed to be on the lookout for, well, there it is. If there is such a thing as a hate crime, you just saw it. And yet the Biden administration and its thoroughly corrupt Department of Justice won't acknowledge that any of that happened because they endorse it happening. Riley Gaines is one of the bravest people we know, and we're grateful to have her join us tonight. Riley Gaines, thank you so much for coming on. Was that as horrifying as it looked?
I mean, it was terrifying for me. The police did not inform me of any sort of action plan. Turning Point USA invited me to the campus. I delivered a very civil and respectful speech where I had great dialogue with even protesters who were participating in a sit-in. All of a sudden, after my speech, the room was stormed. The lights were turned off, and I was rushed with no one there to escort me to a safe place. I was punched, I was hit multiple times, I was shoved, until finally we exited the room. But we could not leave because the protesters flooded the halls, and so I was pushed into a classroom along that hallway where I was barricaded in for 3 hours.
3 hours? Why didn't someone with a gun come and bring you to safety?
Because they were terrified. They were scared to put their hands on these people because they know what these people are capable of. These people yelled obscene, violent, vulgar things to both myself and the officers, I could tell, didn't feel comfortable putting them in a position that would mean they do their job, which is a really scary, chilling thought.
This is the most dangerous extremist movement in the United States right now. It's getting bigger, not smaller. It's gaining steam, not losing it. The White House has endorsed it. I mean, what does this mean for you? And I just can't say it again since I happen to know you. You are an inherently moderate person who means harm to no one. But are you worried about your safety going forward?
You know, I am worried about my safety. I have to be now. When we have people who are willing to do this, and we know why they're willing to do this, it's because they don't have reason, they don't have logic, they don't have science, they don't have common sense on their side. That's on my side. And so they protrude by violence, whether it's physical or verbal violence. But what this means for me, this does not deter me. This assures me that I am doing the right thing. This will not silence me when they want me to be silenced. It just means I need to speak louder.
Really quick, did anyone in the state of California in authority, any political figure, for example, defend you?
No, not the dean of students, not the campus police. I will say the city of San Francisco police that stepped in, they did a phenomenal job in escorting 3 hours later. But I will be pursuing legal action. I will ensure that the people who physically assaulted me, the people who put me in that position, they will face repercussions.
Yeah, I mean, if we can't identify that as evil, then we've really lost the thread. Riley Gaines, I'm glad you're still here, and
Absolutely.
Godspeed. Thank you.
Now this is getting fun because Gaines is responding specifically to the statements from Jamila Moore on Twitter. She tweets out, "I'm sorry, did you just say peaceful? I was assaulted. I was extorted and held for must mean ransom. The protesters demanded I pay them if I wanted to make it home safely. I missed my flight home because I was barricaded in a classroom. We must have different definitions of peaceful." Isn't it fascinating how the definition of peaceful changes for those on the left when it involves people on their side of the aisle? These rules are really pretty simple, folks. When it involves anyone from the left, anyone, even if the person is violent, it's peaceful, and the violence is the fault somehow of the people on the right. Even setting fires, if you remember, is mostly peaceful to liberal reporters as the flames engulf buildings over their shoulders. If the people in question are not on the left or are on the right, then mere words can be violence and an assault, of course. Gaines continued on the same Twitter thread. "I have no problems with peaceful protests. I actually welcome it. I was grateful to see a diverse crowd in the room during my speech, which I expressed multiple times. We had great dialogue and listened to each other, but that ambush was the opposite of peaceful." How much of this crap do you think they can really get away with? Because you know and I know we are going to find out one way or another. You can actually hear one of them justifying their actions against her by blaming Gaines, saying if she didn't want this, she should have not come here. Gaines is lucky to have made it out without further injury, and it's shameful that the school has not condemned this and there has been no action against anyone involved so far. Luckily, Gaines knows where to start in terms of any action she takes. She could take action against a variety of people here, including the school for the failure to act properly to protect her on their campus. I'll end with this. The dipshits running this hellhole in San Francisco should really reconsider their approach with this and do it fast. They are not going to be able to pull themselves up out of the hole they're digging. How many cell phone cameras were running throughout the entirety of this incident? The judge eventually looking into this case will know that the school staff had access to this footage and still sided with the psychopaths and did nothing to stop future incidents. Meaning, we are talking CNN Kentucky Catholic school kid money at this point. Speaking of, didn't Riley go to Kentucky University? Interesting coinky-dink. Hope you all are having a wonderful Easter. Most of this came by way of redstate.com. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. They're much needed and much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.